You're listening to Well and Worthy Life, the podcast that helps midlife women feel better, look better, and live better. I'm your host, Deanna, menopause wellness coach turned to lifestyle creator, and I'm here to give you all of my tips, tools, and real talk you need to thrive in this second half of life. Hey friends, welcome back to the Well and Worthy Life podcast. I'm so glad you're back. I hope you have been enjoying these episodes as much as I have been recording them. You can see if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm sitting in my den by the fireplace, warm and cozy with my water, and I am enjoying doing these like this so much better than when it was all like scheduled and all of that kind of stuff. This works out so much better for my schedule, is that when I think of something that I want to talk to you guys about, that I just record a podcast. So today I'm going to be talking about turning 60 and what I'm doing today that makes me feel my best. And I think that every age that we get, there are things that we've learned about ourselves and what works and what doesn't work. I have some notes on my phone here, and the reason I have these notes is because if I don't have notes, I would go on a tangent. So, my topic today is what I do to feel good at 60. Like I said, I turned 60 this year and I feel better now than I have ever felt, especially when I turned 50. I felt pretty good when I turned 50, but one of the things that I noticed more than anything when I turned 50 is all of a sudden the belly fat had not been there until I hit around 50, and I was like, what is happening? And that's when I really realized about perimenopause and menopause at that point and started really deep diving into that area to figure out what I could do. And now we hear so much about perimenopause and menopause, right? There's so many experts out there. So I don't have to go into too much detail about the hormones, although I do want to share with you some of my hormonal journey. But let's first start with my morning routine. And one of the things that I have learned for me, and I will even tell you most of my clients when I was doing my coaching, it is morning routines that set us up for success. And if I have some certain non-negotiables in the morning and I do certain things in the morning, then I feel better throughout the day. And even this time of year, January, it's cold, dreary a lot of times. Actually, today the sun is shining, but a lot of times it can be dreary and cold and just really not fun. And even if it's like that, if I set my day up in the morning with my routines, then I feel so much better during the day. So I'm going to start there with my morning non-negotiables. And one of the things, my morning non-negotiable, first of all, I get up and I drink water right away. That's a non-negotiable for me. I've gone all night most of the night. Sometimes I'll take a sip of water in the middle of the night, but most of the night without anything to drink. And so replenishing my body with water before my coffee is a non-negotiable for me. I do that first, then I get my cup of coffee and I come sit on my couch right about where I am by my fire and I read the Bible recap. That's what I'm doing right now and I love that. I read part of the Bible and then I listen to the podcast that recaps that part of the Bible. And that just sets the tone for the rest of my day. Then from there, I go into my kitchen and I take my supplements. And you may have heard me talk about this on Instagram and other places, but right now I love my bioactive peptides, and that is a non-negotiable for me also. I've been doing those about a year now, and they have really made a huge difference in my life. I do those, and then so I take the lean first thing in the morning, which is a capsule, and it just helps curb my cravings and it helps burn visceral fat. So I definitely want that visceral fat burn. And then I mix my fit and hydrated together because I know that I'm going to work out shortly, and I take that with me to work out. The fit that I mix in with my hydrated is electrolytes, which I feel is very important even in the winter, because even if we're drinking lots of water, sometimes we're not absorbing it as well, and that's why we need those electrolytes. But I love the fit because the fit helps with my muscle, it helps with my recovery, it is a precursor to the NAD, has so many benefits in it. So that is a non-negotiable for me. Then I go make my bed, get dressed in my exercise clothes, and I work out. Those are my pretty much my non-negotiables. Now, there are some days, there are very few, but that I do not go work out, like meaning I don't go to a workout class. And if I'm not going to a workout class, then I'll probably go walk or do something, some sort of movement. Most days, I would say I do that 5 to 7 days a week. So those are really important to me. And setting myself up for success in the day starts with that morning routine. And like I said, when I was coaching clients, that's one of the first things that we would talk about is what are your non-negotiables in the morning? What does your morning routine look like? Had I known this when I was in my 20s and 30s, it would have made my life so much easier. I don't know if we didn't talk about it. We sure didn't have social media, so I wouldn't have learned about it there. I was just trying to learn how to be a mother and be the best mother I could be, I guess. So that is really what I've started in the 60th decade with the peptides for sure. Exercise has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. Making my bed is so important to me. Drinking that water is so important to me. Like I said, it just really starts my day off great. How I protect my energy and not just my time. So, one of the things I've learned is that it's not all the things that I need to do. I don't need to do a lot of things. I've really learned how to even work smarter and not harder with my job between podcasting and doing my social media things and all the things that I do. I'm not interested in overdoing it. At 60, I realize that it's the small things that make the biggest difference. And one of the ways I protect my energy is not to have too many things on my plate, to space things out. The other way is that really helps with my energy is to be around my friends. And friendships take a lot of work. And our friends that we were friends with in our 20s, 30s, maybe even 40s really shift when we hit our 50s and 60s and as we become empty nesters. Because if you're like me, most of your friends when you were younger were because of your children's. They were your children's friends' parents, right? And that's how you got to be friends with them. And some of those friendships last through the empty nesting, and some of those friendships shift and change. But in order to build the friendships, you've got to spend time with people and you have to make an effort. And it takes an effort from both people. It can't be a one-sided thing. One of the things I've learned that if I'm doing all the asking, you want to go to lunch, you want to come play mahjong, you want to do this, then it just wears me out of my energy. I'm not interested. I need friends that give, and it needs to be a give and take relationship. And I've realized that those friendships, I've always been like this, though, really. I just have a few really close friends, but those friends I can really count on. And I do think friendships as we get older are more important than ever. I remember when I was in my 30s and 40s watching my mother in her 50s and 60s and how some of the friends that she had were, in fact, she had a lot more girlfriends than I do, but she really spent time with her girlfriends. And I thought, oh, how nice that is because I didn't do that. And now I do feel like I do spend a lot of quality time with my girlfriends. So that I get my energy from, but I don't overdo it. I sprinkle in time with my husband, which is very important. and also time with my grandchildren and my children and my daughter-in-laws. All of that is really important. And I could become overwhelmed and too busy, but I really protect my energy. And I say no when I need to say no, and yes when I need to say yes or want to say yes. I think that comes with time, learning how to say no, right? And sometimes we say no so that we can say yes to ourselves. And I think that's really an important lesson that I didn't really understand. I always thought I had to say yes to everything. For one, I didn't want to miss out, right? That fear of missing out. But the other thing was because I wanted everybody to be happy with me. And one of the things about getting older is this freedom not to have to worry about everybody liking you and everybody having to be okay with you. And I love that. I love that part of life. Yes, so it's protecting my energy. And I think that's a really important part. Movement that feels good and not punishing. And I love this one because here's the thing. I used to be a runner in my 30s, and I will say it did not feel punishing unless it was those early mornings. I had to get up and it was dark outside and it was dreary and cold and all those things. Then it was kind of punishing. But I did love that time. And I've always loved movement. I've always loved exercise. So that's never felt punishing. I think the only time it felt really punishing to me was when I was in my early 20s and I was a runner, and that felt punishing. But as I got older, I really did find the exercises that really worked for me. And in my 40s, I found Pure Barre, and that really changed my life. I knew that was the type of exercise. I love group exercise, number one. And now in my late 50s, I have found Pilates and I am loving Pilates. In fact, I love the Legree method on the Mega Reformer. Now, it's not easy, but it's not punishing to my body. It's not hardcore, at least not to me. I think, we kind of get used to the type of exercise we like. I don't love CrossFit has never been something that I've been attracted to. I've gone with my friends before, but I've never been that type of workout girl, a gym girl, or anything like that. I've always liked classes and I've always found what really works for me, not just what somebody tells me I should do. Because let's face it, if you look on the internet right now, everybody's saying strength train, strength train. This is what you need to do, lift heavy. And while I agree with some of that, I still think you have to find out what works best for you. And going to a gym and lifting heavy does not work for me. It doesn't work for my mindset. I don't love that. And if I don't love it, I'm not going to stick with it. So finding those exercises that don't feel like, or that movement that doesn't feel punishing. What is it that feels good to your body? And do more of that. I think that is really important. And that's what I've done for myself. One of the other things that I've talked about a lot is supplements. And in particular, like I've said before, my bioactive peptides. And I'm going to leave a link in the show notes. So if you're interested in checking those out, I've always been a big peptide girl. Oh gosh, probably the last 5 or 6 years, I've done podcasts on peptides. And the ones that I had been using before about a year and a half ago were the injectable peptides. GLP-1 trisepatide I've used Imperalin. I'm not sure if that's how you say it. Anyway, several of them that I got from my functional medicine doctor. And I loved those, but I will say you had to inject them. And you would only inject them for like 5 days and 2 days off. And there's all these different schedules, and you can't do them for too long and all these different things. So when I was introduced to this new company, Make Well, with bioactive peptides, meaning they're from natural plant resources, I was so intrigued with these. And I started using them in November of 2024 and I love them. They are more for longevity. And yes, they do help with weight loss, with muscle, all the things that the other peptides, the injectable peptides, were working on, but there's something that I can ingest, I can take orally, which makes it so much easier. I do not have to spend a ton of money on them, which the injectable peptides are very expensive. These are easy to get. You just order them, you can subscribe to them, and they have a lot of the things I need. Like I said earlier, some of those are non-negotiable. I don't travel without them. They're easy to travel with, so many things. So the bioactive peptides, for sure, I love them and I don't go anywhere without them. The other supplement I love is creatine, and I've just really started using that probably consistently in the last year. And I love Create gummies. And the reason why I love those is because I can be consistent with those and they're good. So, got good, clean ingredients. The key to creatine, really the key to most supplements is consistency. And so, how can I make it consistent? When I had a powder creatine, I wasn't consistent because I had to mix it in something. And with these, they're gummies. I just take 3 to 5 of them a day. They work. It helps with my brain. It helps with my sleep. It helps with my muscle. They're showing more and more studies now about how the creatine helps with our brain, and for menopausal, perimenopausal women, how important creatine is. If you have not tried creatine, I would highly recommend it. I know there's some myths out there about gaining water weight and things like that. I never had a problem with that. And if you start on a small scale, not taking too many grams, you should be fine. Nobody I know of that takes creatine on a consistent basis has had any problem with that. So I love the Create gummies. Those are the ones I like, and I will put a link in the show notes to those too. The other supplement I take on a consistent basis, because I do try other supplements here and there, but if you're like me, it just gets overwhelming. But the other one I take on a consistent basis is magnesium. I love magnesium. And then another one is called the AX3, and that helps with immunity, with skin health, with so many things too. So those are the ones that I take really consistently. And then, of course, I add others in where I think I've tried different ones for hair growth and different things like that. I haven't found one that I just love. And to be honest with you, it does get overwhelming taking too many supplements. So I've narrowed it down to my bioactive peptides, the AX3, the creatine gummies, and my magnesium. And those are the ones that I am consistent with. And this is one of the things that I learned in my 50s. Well, I don't know if I learned it or if it just really, I decided that, yes, I want to look good. And if you've been following along my journey on Instagram, you know, last January 24th, 2025, I had a facelift. And I do want to look good, but it's more important on how I feel. So I really focus on how I feel. Like I said, I do want to look good, and I'm not trying to look like I'm 20 or anything like that, but I want to feel my best, because when I feel my best, then I make the best decisions for me. I make my healthy decisions. If I don't feel good, I don't know, are y'all like this? Like when I don't feel good, I feel bloated, or if I've got a cold or whatever, I don't make the best decisions for myself. Last year when I had my facelift, I felt horrible. And I thought then my health is so much more important on how I feel. In fact, if you go back, I've got an Instagram highlight. I share my whole journey on my facelift, and it was a really tough time. I got pneumonia on top of it. Maybe I'll do a whole podcast about that at some point, but I did document my journey on there on Instagram, and maybe we'll put a link to that highlight. But I got sick and I felt so ashamed of what I had done because I did it to myself and I just felt so lousy. And I thought then, I mean, my health is so much more important than anything else. How I feel like if I can get out and about and work out, all the things, walk. I mean, just, you take your health for granted when you feel good every day. And then when you don't feel good, you're like, oh my gosh, I took that such for granted. So it's really, really important to me the way I feel over the way I look. Like I said, I want both, but if I only have to choose one. And then another big thing that I am really has changed in the last few years, and I would say really in the last, I think it was November of 2019. It was right before COVID. I really cut back on my alcohol. And that really has helped me in my health journey so much. I realize now the longer I go without alcohol, the better I feel. I've learned that even just one glass of wine makes me feel lousy. It interrupts my sleep, and it's so not worth it to me. I really try to think through things. If you are finding yourself with a glass of wine every night, maybe you should check in with yourself and see what is going on. I decided in 2019 just to see how I would feel going without alcohol for a couple of reasons. One is I knew just a little bit of alcohol, and I mean, I do feel like I was not drinking a ton of alcohol, but I was drinking some, and I knew that it was interfering with my health goals. I knew that. And then also, husband said I was a bad drunk or a mean drunk, which I didn't ever feel like I would get drunk, but I did feel like my tongue became looser. And sometimes I would wake up the next morning and know that Jeff and I had a fight, and I couldn't remember what had happened. I was sure it was his fault, but I couldn't exactly remember. And that was probably just 3 glasses of something. So it wasn't like I was consuming a lot of alcohol, but enough to be a problem. And I went and I gave up alcohol for a month. I started at a month and I didn't really have any support or anything. And then after a month, I did introduce it back in, but I realized I could do it without alcohol and I felt so much better. When I was coaching, I would refer a lot of people to my friend Sober Sis, and I've done a lot of podcasts with her. So you can even look back at some of the podcasts I've done with her. I think she is very helpful if you want to examine that relationship that you have with alcohol. I rarely drink nowadays. It just, like I said, that one glass of wine or one glass of vodka or whatever it would be is just not worth it to me because it interrupts my sleep. So, those are some of the things that I am doing to feel my best right now at 60. Listen, here's the thing, midlife is not about restriction, it's about supporting yourself with the things that you need. And I do feel like when we restrict and we say, you can't do this and you can't do that, then, well, for me, I can't speak for everybody else. For me, if I say you can't have that sugar, or you can't have that alcohol, or you can't, then it's setting me up for failure because I'm rebellious in nature. Yes, I don't know. And if I say I can't, then it makes me want it more. So it's really about having that support and supporting yourself in the ways that you know that you'll feel your best. And that's what I've done at this stage of my life at 60. And now I feel better than ever. But it's a learning pattern and learning what works for me and taking the things that are working and doing more of those things and figuring out the things that don't work and doing less of those things. So I hope this helps you today. Really, what I want for you is take what resonates with you and then leave the rest here. This season is about listening to yourself, not listening to somebody else, but listening to yourself. If there's something I've said today that resonates with you, take it, run with it, share it with your friend. I love it when you share my podcast with your friends. And, it just opens somebody's eyes about something. Maybe it's something I've said, but just because I've said it or somebody has said it doesn't mean that you need to do it. You've got to figure out what works best for you and do that. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you again for listening. Thanks for being here, friend. Don't forget to subscribe, share this episode, and keep choosing what makes you feel well and worthy.